All right, we have chapter 26 here. Never laugh at a shoelace. This is a shoelace, said Mac. Everybody laughed. Mac was standing at the front of the room, holding his shoelace in his hand. He felt like a fool. What a fool, said Allison. It all started a minute earlier when Miss Nogard asked, "Who has something to share for show and tell?" But first, you should know something about Mac. Mac's favorite subject in the whole world was show and tell. He loved it, especially when he was the one doing the showing and telling. He often looked through garbage cans on his way to school in search of stuff to show and tell about. Once he found a real gushy love letter. It was covered with something that looked like rotten food. So when Miss Nogard said, "Who has something to share for show and tell?" Mac reacted without thinking. His arm shot up like a rocket as he almost jumped out of his seat. "Oh, oh," he groaned. Then he remembered something. "I didn't bring anything for show and tell." Miss Nogard heard him. Before he could lower his hand, she called on him. And that was how he ended up with a shoelace dangling from his hand like a dead worm. "It came from my sneaker," he said. He took off his sneaker and held it up too, next to his lace. "See, you stick the laces through the little holes here, then tie it in a bow. That keeps it from falling off your foot." "Duh," said Dana. "We know what a shoelace is," said Paul. "I've been tying my shoes since I was 2 years old," said Joe. Calvin and Bebe booed. "Sit down," said Jason. "You're boring." The kids in Mrs. Jewell's class never used to be so mean, but they'd been getting grumpier and grumpier ever since Miss Nogard took over. "Put your shoe back on," said Marisa. "Your foot stinks." Mac felt terrible. I would feel terrible too. Miss Nogard smiled. "Go on, Mac," she said. "We're all very interested to hear what you have to say." He tried to think of some way to make a shoelace interesting. Shoelaces are really important," he said. "There was once this guy. He was a real fast runner. His name was Howard. Howard Speed. He was the fastest runner in the world. But this was way back before shoelaces were invented. And so every time Howard raced, he ran right out of his shoes." Nobody seemed very impressed. But then Rondi asked, Did it hurt his feet?" Mac shrugged. "I guess," he said. "I once stubbed my toe on a rock," said Stephen. "It hurt." Yeah, and you didn't run as fast as Howard Speed," said Mac. "He ran so fast that if he kicked a rock, he would break his toe." "Did he have blisters?" asked Todd. Mac smiled. "Man, he had the biggest blisters you ever saw in your whole life. Bleeding blisters." "Oh," Joe and John said together. "With goo oozing out," said Mac. "Oh, gross," said Dana. Everyone was paying attention to Mac now. "Wherever Howard went," said Mac, "he left a trail of bloody footprints." "Cool," said Terrence. "And so they had to invent something to keep Howard's sneakers on his feet," said Mac. "First they just tried nailing his shoes to his feet." "Yowzer!" exclaimed Bebe. "Why didn't he just use Velcro?" asked Jason. "Howard lived in Africa," explained Mac. "Velcro trees only grow in Australia. So then they tried gluing his shoes to his feet, and that seemed to work, but then whenever he took off his shoes, like to take a bath or something, he'd peel off a layer of skin." "Ouch." "Yuck-ola!" shrieked Allison. But finally Thomas Edison invented the shoelace, and Howard never ran out of his shoes again. "Did he win all the races after that?" asked John. "Well," said Mac, "the next race was for the championship of the world. Howard got off to a real fast start. It looked like he would win for sure. But shoelaces were still a new invention, and Howard wasn't quite used to them yet. Right before he reached the finish line, his shoelaces came untied. He tripped over it and fell flat on his face. He broke his nose, lost all his teeth, and had 2 black eyes. "Wow," said all 3 Erics together. "So remember," said Mac, as he held his shoelace high in the air, "never laugh at a shoelace." Everyone applauded. Do you think Howard Speed's a real person? Do you think that's really how shoelaces were invented? I'm not sure. I don't know about Howard Speed, though.